Welcome to the second video in my Autodesk Vault setup series. In my first video, which I will link in the description of this video, we talk about users, user groups, life cycles, and categories. We're now going to discuss properties and how to create that link between the Vault properties and attributes in a DWG file. It's very important that you stop and you think about how you want this to work before you start going in there, because as we add life cycles and categories, and now that we're adding files into the system, it's going to be really hard to go back and change anything because it's going to be associated with multiple entities. So getting this right the first time is very important. So before we can actually go into the properties under behaviors, we actually need to do a little bit of research on CAD, and we actually have to go into the Vault server and do some things on the Vault server side as well. So before I go there, let's open up a CAD drawing. So this is just a simple title block that I created for this illustration. I added some values into the title block itself and blocked the entire thing. Now, a couple notes about this. I created a block for this, and I've put some attributes in this block. Vault is going to map to these specific attributes. If you do not have attributes in your title block and you're just using plain text, this will not work. You will need to create a new title block and make new attributes and populate that information into that title block for these links to work. I'll create a separate video on how to do that, but for this video, I'm going to assume that you have a title block with attributes, and if you were to double click on one of these attributes, you're going to get the attribute editor, and you can go through and edit that stuff here. It's very important that they are attributes and not just plain text, because Vault will not link to multi-line or single line text. The thing that we need right now from this is just the block name. So we're going to click the block and look over in our properties, and it's called Title A. That's important. We actually have to add that block name to our server. So now that we have the block name, we're going to go ahead and open up the server. Here is our server. And so I've already added it to the server. But to do this, just go to Tools, Index Block Attributes. And these are all the blocks that Vault is going to be looking for. And you can see I have Title A here. If I had a Title B, all I would add is Title B, hit OK, and then close. You just discuss a little bit about title blocks real quick. If you have multiple size sheets, you don't necessarily have to have different title block names. You can use the same block name. Just edit the border of that block to your specific sheet size, and that way you don't have to go in and change your mappings all the time. You can work off of one block and then go from there. Okay, so I have the server side done, so I can close that. I'm going to keep this open because I'm going to reference some of this information specifically from the block. I'm going to go ahead, and since I'm in here, I'm just going to go ahead and go into block editor so I can see that attribute information. I'm going to minimize this, and now I can go into properties. So in properties, let's talk a little bit about properties before we just go start making some. I'm going to sort by this property type tag first, just to show you the two different types of properties that are in Vault. You have all these blue, looks like a little dude. Those are user properties. So those are properties that either are being pulled from drawings or pulled from other places. And then you have these gears. They're system properties. These are properties that Vault generates as users use the systems. So one like originator, that's the person who created the drawing. Folder path, I mean, that's pretty self-explanatory. So we're not going to be editing the system properties, and I highly advise against messing with those, just because if you don't know what you're doing and you end up breaking something, it can really break something. So we're going to create a bunch of user properties, and we're not going to use the ones out of the box. We're going to create new ones just for the sake of educational purposes. So we're going to go up to New, and we're going to create a new property. So this one we're going to call drawing number, and again I'm using the same format, all capital letters, easier to find that way, and we know it's one that I've created, not one that was out of the box. This is a text type. You have number, boolean, true, false, dates. The majority of the ones that we'll be using is text. And then associations, you can see you can actually associate it with different categories. So we're going to make this property part of the electrical and mechanical category. Hit close. Here's some information about this stuff. I'm not going to get into anything here because it's all pretty much good to go. Mapping is where all the fun happens. So mapping is where you actually create the link between Vault and the DWG. To do that, we want to click where it says click here to add a new map. You're going to have this blue bar, and you can just click each box to edit it. So provider, I'm going to start there. I'm going to scroll up and select AutoCAD DWG. File property, I want to import properties. Since nothing's out here already, I need an example drawing to pull from. So I'm going to import from file. And here is my example title block that I'll be using. Hit open, and it's going to pull all the title block information, all the properties from that drawing so that you can use. Down at the bottom, you can see title A and all the properties I made here. So here is DWG number. So we're going to select that, hit OK. Text type, no classification, mapping. So mapping has 3 different options. Majority of the time, you're going to select bidirectional. Or you can have the file write to Vault, have Vault write to the file, or like I said, bidirectional. Here we want bidirectional. Hit OK. So we have that mapped. So we're going to go back to our drawing. We're going to add scale and go ahead and get rid of that server. We're not doing anything else in the server tonight, so we'll make a scale property. So back into Vault, go to new. Scale is text, association, electrical, mechanical. Hit close, mapping. Click here to add new mapping. Provider, AutoCAD. And watch this, because I've already opened it once and I haven't got out of the property definitions box. Once I click the box here, everything's still there. So scroll down, scale, okay, bidirectional, okay. So now we have scale done. I come back, I'm going to look at this. Sheet number, let's do sheet number. So go to new, sheet number, text, associations, same thing, electrical, mechanical, close, mapping, file property, sheet number. So you can go through there, and I'm not going to go add every single property that I have on the drawing, but you can see it's the same process. It's a bunch of picks and clicks, and this is where I was saying it's really important to kind of have a plan. And it makes it really beneficial if you can use that same block for the information. Because if you do go into one of these and do mapping, you can map multiple things. So you can have multiple blocks mapped to the same Vault property. Where it becomes an issue is when you do have multiples mapped here, Vault is just going to search the list until it gets a value returned to it. So if for whatever reason title A is giving you a false value, but you have title B down here where you want the real value, it's not going to go to title B because it already got a value from title A. So that's where I'm talking about you use one block for all your different sizes. The only thing that changes on those blocks is the actual border, thing that doesn't matter. Vault doesn't care about the border, it cares about the attributes. All the attributes are named the same. The block is named the same. That way you don't have to get all crazy with the mapping. And again, as soon as you use something, as soon as you assign something in Vault, whether it's a title block or it's a property or a category, it makes it that much harder to get rid of it in the future. If you went through and you added a bunch of title blocks to your Vault server, and then you realize, I could have taken that from a dozen title blocks to 2 title blocks. Well, you can't remove those because you're going to break a bunch of stuff. So you're kind of stuck with it. You just kind of have to live with it. So keep that in mind. New property, go back to the Autodesk drawing. We'll add, we'll add the drawn by. So we'll go drawn by, that's a text, association, electrical, and mechanical, close, mapping, DWG, and then come down and find drawn by. Okay, bidirectional, good. So that's properties. Again, I make everything capitalized so I can find it quickly, and I know that's something I created. That's not something that came out of the box or Vault. It's something I created. Sheet number is something I created. And you can go back in here and you can edit it whenever you need to. Just double click on it and you can edit that mapping. Now, I'm going to throw a drawing in the Vault, and I want to show you how this mapping works. All right, so I went ahead and added this example title block drawing that I was using in the Vault. Now, I want to look at a couple things. Before adding files to Vault will be another video, but let's just look at the file right now. There's not a whole lot of information here in our viewer, but we just went through and added a bunch of properties. So how do we see those? So let's talk about customization real quick. If you go up to the top here and right click and go to Customize View, and then go to Fields, then change your available fields to Files. These are all the different properties that you can add to your GUI, your view field. So we're going to add scale, sheet number, because these are things that we just mapped, and drawn by, and DWG number. Okay, and close. So we can kind of edit this a little bit so it looks a little bit better. So here's all the properties that we mapped, but what is going on? Nothing's populating. Why is that? Well, remember, you assign these properties, or we assign these properties to certain categories. That was mechanical and electrical. When you bring in a file, it's going to go into the base category. So we actually need to assign a category to this file before any of these properties will populate. Ooh. So let's go ahead and click that file and go to change category. And we can call this electrical or mechanical. It really doesn't matter because we made them the same. Let's call it a mechanical drawing and hit OK. So now our category glyph changed and all that information from the title block has now changed. So now we have useful information on that drawing file right there. We don't have to open up the drawing to see drawing number, drawing by, sheet number, or any of the other properties that we made. It's all right there. Super easy to find. It is now also assigned a life cycle. So this is now into that design state. And like we said, any new DWG file assigned to the mechanical or electrical is going to come into the design state because we want to control what goes into the master state. We don't want anything automatically going into the master state because that is a release state, and then users on the web client are going to be able to see that. So we can go to change state and you'll see all the different states we can assign it to. Now, I want to point out one other thing about users and groups. Right now, I'm signed in as administrator. I don't have any options here, and that's because administrator is not in any specific user group. So to change that, I can go into Tools, Global Settings, Groups, and let's add administrator to, well, let's add them to administrators. So double click, can go to Add, find administrator in the list. Right at the top, hit Add, OK, OK. close, close, change state, and now there's all the states that I can move it to. So I can move it to a review state if I want to, and there it's now in a review state, and I can do just about whatever I want to it. I will take this to a master state to show you one thing to kind of illustrate on our life cycle. If I move it to a master state, so now that it's in a master state, you'll see this little locked file underneath the Vault status. And what I actually had to go in and do is delete my local copy in the Vault working folder to get this to populate correctly, because you saw that red circle. That was just saying that the file in Vault and the file on the local copy were not synced. And so I went through and I deleted it and I refreshed, and this padlock came up, and that's telling you that it's locked. That means there's still no editing can go on that. So that's part of that life cycle that we made. And again, if we were to go into the thin client, the web client right now, we'd be able to see this drawing. Also, if I were to go in and add myself, administrator, right, to the take me out of that and add me to the contractors, it's in a master state. If I go to change state, I can't change it to anything. I'm locked out. As a contractor, I cannot take that master state drawing and move it to the design state. I have to have somebody else, one of the document owners or one of the administrators, move that down for me to do editing on. So again, that's just another level of protection that you can add to these drawings. So just to recap what we talked about today, we went through and added properties to our Vault. So in Tools, Vault Settings, we can now go and add properties and do all our mapping on those properties. If I look at drawing number, mapping, there's all the mapping that we made. Remember that you have to add that title block name, that block name, to the server side. So if you don't have access to the server side, you need to ask your administrator to add that for you. And then you can create all the mappings that you want, all the different properties that you want. Again, my recommendation is use capital letters, so it is distinguished from out-of-the-box stuff. Once you add that file, you can assign a category to it, and then once you assign a category to it, all the properties that are assigned to that category will now populate, and you have that read-write benefit between the file and Vault. And you can go and add more and more and more, change the states, and you can see the different securities that you set up in the lifecycle take place for the different users, like I showed you earlier. That's it. If you have any questions, I'd be place them in the comments. I'd be more happy to respond. Thank you and appreciate you.